This conference will now be recorded.
This will commence our meeting for the Rome City Council. We do have a quorum. Let's get right off the bat. Let's do the invocation, please.
If y'all could bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight both humble and grateful. We ask that you pierce our hearts, our minds, and our souls. Pierce our hearts with love for each other. Pierce our minds with wisdom that we may make decisions that both benefit our city as well as honor you. And pierce our souls with the forthright knowledge that you are in control. Please bless the members of this political body as well as all of our citizens and guide us as we do the work of our city. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll go on to public comments. The council is not permitted to take action on or discuss any comments made to the council at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. However, a council member or mayor may make a statement of fact regarding the item, make a statement concerning the policy regarding the item, and or may propose that the item be placed on a future agenda or direct the city administrator to contact the individual to address. If you are attending the meeting via live streaming and you would like to make a public comment, you must email the city secretary at citysecretary@cityofrome.com prior to 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting and must identify each subject you plan to present to be recognized. If the writer of a public comment is unable to read their own comment, it should be given to a friend, family member, or associate that is able to attend in person and read the statement in their stead. Public comments made in person require the speaker to submit the sign-up form to the city secretary prior to the meeting, and the form must identify each subject the speaker plans to present. A statement of no more than 3 minutes may be made. There will be no yielding of time to another person. Comments should be directed to the entire council, not individual members. Engaging in verbal attacks or comments intended to insult, abuse, malign, or slander any individual shall be cause for termination of time privileges and removal from the council chambers. And Ms. Odom, what you got?
Our first speaker is Deborah B. Kraft.
Okay, I'm Deborah B. Kraft. I live at 360 West 2nd. I want to speak as the commander of the Rome Veterans, and I wanted to let the council and mayor and the city citizens know that the Rome Veterans have been working with the Daughters of the American Revolution, the John B. Denton chapter out of Wise County, and we have now added the Aurora Cemetery to the list for Reefs Across America. What that means is come December or any time before that, you will be able to buy a wreath and have it placed in the Aurora Cemetery on a veteran's grave. So we're very excited and hope everybody participates. You can come and put your wreath on the veteran's grave yourself. It doesn't have to be done by us. We hope we get a lot of participation, a lot of wreaths purchased, and a lot of people out there helping us place those. And that'll be sometime in mid-December, and they stay till mid-January. So it's been approved by the Reefs Across America, the John B. Denton chapter, the Daughters of the Revolution, American Revolution, and the Aurora Cemetery. So we're very excited. And then, you want me to go ahead with mine, other one? As a personal note, this has nothing to do with the veterans, I just hope and pray that the council picks the best qualified person for the council tonight, not just because they're a friend or acquaintance, or because they agree with you. We need to have somebody on there that has just the city's best interest at heart. We've got to break the cycle with the Friends and Family Plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Lisa Wilson.
I am Joanne Wilson speaking for Lisa Wilson, 240 West First here in Rome. Mayor and council, another year has come and gone. New year has begun and we have a new administrator at the helm. In my humble opinion, we need to see more transparency with the city. For instance, a petition was presented a few months ago to the council requesting the resignation of a council person. Citizens still do not know the status. Many citizens, including myself, get back a response from open records that says no responsive documents. We are just curious because we feel we are not being properly informed. The City of Rome has a Facebook page and could be used to inform citizens of status of such things as the petition, revised or adjusted dates for trash pickup. Share, share, share. Like the State Farm commercial says, like a good neighbor. Yes, we are the neighboring city to Aurora. It is neighborly to offer patrol help, but not at the expense of our own city patrols, for which our citizens are taxed. Do we get compensated for working calls in New York? Conflict of interest seems to run amok in our city. In my opinion, the former interim administrator negotiated the exorbitant contract with the new city administrator, in fact, which would be his boss. The same thing may be true in the selection of a new fire chief that may be happening tonight. Has the individual been properly vetted? Was the position re-advertised when the council decided to make it a full-time position? I know it was advertised as a part-time. Think about it. Citizens are noticing. I have said it before, but I feel it bears repeating. Last May, Patricia Mitchell was elected by a majority to be our mayor. The voters feel she is quite capable and needs to be involved in all aspects of the city. Why is she being kept out of the loop? Soon to be time to sign up for council. Again, citizens are noting. A special thanks to our public works guys for installing a special swing in our park for those that have a special need. Thank you, Mayor, for noticing this need and making it happen. Christmas in all areas of Rome displayed their Christmas spirit. It was enjoyed by all. And to end was a welcome to Amanda DeCamp. And Shannon says I can't say that, so, but we're glad you're here.
Thank you.
That's the end of public
That's
comment.
it. Okay. Announcements. City Hall will be closed Monday, January 16th for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Any other announcements from council? No?
I have one.
Oh, good.
The first day to sign up for the election is Wednesday, January 18th, 2023.
Okay. And how long does that run?
It runs until February 17th, I believe. Let's just double check.
And Shana, isn't that on the website, that information?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I believe it's the 17th.
Very good. It's about a month. Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay, regular agenda. We're going to appoint and swear in an applicant to place 5 of the Rome City Council. This will be city administrator and city secretary.
Thank you, Mayor. So all of you received the applications that we received. We had 5 people apply for the position that was vacated by Mr. Meehan. And you had directed staff to accept those applications through January the 5th, and that you would review the applications and appoint a new member this evening. So for those of you that have the information electronically, you can access some of those. I also, through your email, or I have left printed copies at your station if you need that. We did call and ask all applicants to be present this evening. And in the past, I understand council has interviewed those individuals and then made their decision and appointed them that evening. So I will turn it over to all of you for conversations with the applicants that are here. We can take them either in alphabetical order or in order that I have their information here, or however the mayor chooses.
Okay. Well, I noticed Mr. Loftus
Yes.
is on.
You
He's
are correct.
online. He
Yes.
couldn't be here. He does come to quite a few of our council meetings. Yeah, do we want to just have these folks come up and introduce themselves quickly?
It will be at your discretion.
Why don't we do that? Come up and we'll have everyone come up and talk to us for a moment or two.
So the first I have is Mr. Shoemake. Are you here? Would you like to come up, sir? Thank you.
There we go. My name's Casey Shoemake. I just go right into my experience. I've worked with the city of Roanoke for about 11 years. I'm a police officer out there, specifically to the traffic motor division. With Roanoke, even beginning before I started working there, I basically watched it grow up from a dirt road all the way into what it is today. And I've been able to see infrastructure placement all along roads, businesses brought in, all the way starting from a lot of the Hillwood company who I work off duty for, built up that industrial area and really got Roanoke a baseline as far as taxes and everything, get them set up. And then they moved more into the unique dining capital, as it's called. But I've watched it grow up, and I've had a hand in not just infrastructure outside of roadways, but particularly in the traffic, is working with TxDOT and our city council. So we have had a few mishaps with restriping and everything, but help assisting TxDOT mainly with our roadways, just because I'm traffic oriented. But yeah, basically watched it grow up, and I've been able to, I guess, see how the city has really excelled in bringing it to where it is today. And I would look forward, and be my pleasure to bring that to Rome and lead the way on basically getting Rome growth and helping them get to that point.
Thank
Council
you.
have any questions?
Yeah, I believe in the past we've, had some questions. So I've got a few, and anybody else can jump in, obviously. So my first one, as a council member, what would you do differently to get citizen engagement that has not already been tried?
I know with how we've operated, social media is huge. And getting those events not just out on Facebook, but Instagram and all those social media accounts, but to really get social media rolling, that really does get a lot of our citizens involved. And I don't know if you guys have tried sending out pamphlets. I know it's kind of the old school way outside of social media, but that'd be another avenue to go down. But yeah, social media would be a big one.
All right. What do you believe is the single most compelling issue facing Rome right now? Why?
I know since we moved in, I kept thinking infrastructure and roadways. As much traffic as Roanoke is experiencing right now, we're just getting started with getting that squared away. So I know infrastructure as far as roadways go, infrastructure as far as water and sewage go. Mainly the big thing that Roanoke did right was set up that infrastructure initially. Roadways were kind of lagging because of TxDOT, but getting that infrastructure set away before that growth starts really coming in.
Based on what you know about our city government, what do you see as the top 3 priorities for Rome?
I guess obviously infrastructure would probably be number 1. Getting the water and sewage squared away would be up there too. And then maintaining, we have a very low tax rate. And that's something that's really important. I'd like to keep that in there too.
My last question is, the city council at times must render decisions regarding the implementation of policies and/or programs that may be somewhat difficult. Are you willing to take on this responsibility of making decisions that are in the best interest of the public, even though they may be somewhat difficult? And how would you react to the negative ramifications of such decisions?
I have firsthand experience in this because as a police officer, we have to make those kind of decisions on a daily basis. So I wouldn't have any problem making those decisions. And as long as it's for the better for our community and for the city, as long as that's the end goal, I don't think I'd have any problem with it. Because like I said, we do that on a day-to-day basis.
Anyone else?
Thank you
very much. Okay, the next one, just in no particular order that we have, is Mrs. DeGarmo. Donna?
You know, I'm very interested in the city of Rome. I'm here now and we need our city to grow. And in all respects, hearing the comments from Casey, I think he would be a wonderful choice. I mean, I volunteer in Roanoke. Roanoke is something that I would love to see come to Rome. I don't know him personally at all, but we need somebody young in here. We need somebody that is really promoting growth. And I don't know who the others are, but you know, you can ask me anything you want. I love Rome. No matter who gets elected, I am not going to be quiet, obviously. I mean, I have not been quiet in the past. So, but Casey just sounds wonderful. I really enjoyed his presentation.
I know. You never expect that.
So,
I'm going to ask you the same questions then.
okay.
That's all right. As a council member, what would you do differently to get citizen engagement that has not already been tried?
Well, I mean, the one thing I thought about there is having some kind of informal gatherings. Obviously, when they had the bond issue, and I was not really here for that point, people did not understand. I think the older generation did not understand the value of a bond. So I think sometime you or whoever can sit down at the coffee shop here at the donut place and say, you know, if you got a question, ask me. Let me help you understand what's really going on. It's not going to raise your taxes horrendously. It can only do good. So I mean, a lot of the demographics here are older people that just need somebody to lead them a little bit. And I think they need to be led face to face.
And what do you believe is the single most compelling issue facing Rome and why?
Well, my outlook is a whole lot different than Casey's. That's why I really like that. One of the things that's causing us grief is the tension of city council. I mean, we cannot let things drop. And I believe in freedom of speech. I believe in everything. But every council meeting, we let the people get up and say, well, you know, our water rates went up. It's a dead horse. Quit beating the dead horses. We need council to be way more active. We need to, there again, if we need to sit down with somebody and say, look, you know, we had to raise the rates. End of story. We had to because it hadn't been done for years. We had to because we're about to be fined by the state. Help them understand. So council just needs to be way more involved.
And then leading into the next question, based on what you know, what do you see as the top 3 priorities for Rome?
Communication, roadways, obviously. Infrastructure is just, I come home about 5:30 in the afternoon every afternoon, and it's like, oh my Lord. And I pray that there's no accidents where 114 and 287 come together. It's just, that's something that really has to be dealt with as soon as possible. And then lastly, growth. There again, I have to say Casey had it fine. We need some little shops, some little places where people will gather and people that want to stay here. I mean, I go to Roanoke. I'm sorry, but they have the small establishments, the food places, have a couple drinks with friends, come home. It's wonderful. So we need that growth, and we need to say, I'm sorry, Rome cannot stay the same as it's been for the last umpteen years.
And finally, the city council must render decisions regarding the implementation of policies and/or programs that may be somewhat difficult. Are you willing to take on that responsibility of making those decisions that are in the best interest of the public, even though they may be somewhat difficult? And how would you react to the negative ramifications of such decisions?
And there again, I think I've kind of answered that already. Yes, I would be willing to say, okay, we need to do this. And then I would hope that the naysayers or the negative people would say, explain it to me. And I'd be glad to say, okay, this is the way it is. So I love Rome, not going to be quiet. It's just like, if he has any ends, he's the one to vote for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh,
Thank you, ma'am. The next one I have on the list is Diana Allen.
Good evening, everybody. I work for Wise County. I have been there for almost 17 years, and so I've been involved in government for quite a while. I've never served on council or board or any of those type of things, but I've sat in more commissioners court meetings than I can probably count to this point in my life. What I would like to do is bring just objectivity to the council. I don't have a preset agenda. I just want to bring that just that decision making, the independent decision making on that. I have lived in Wise County for 20 years. I've lived in Rome for a little over 5 now. Most of my life was in Paradise. I also am a business owner, so I have that perspective as well as the perspective of a first responder. My husband's been a first responder for 20 plus years. So I think I bring a broad background of experience as well to the council and can see things from different sides. And so that is pretty much who I am. If you have any questions, I'm going to answer those.
sure. Same set of questions. As a council member, what would you do differently to get citizen engagement that's not already been tried?
On that, I feel like there's two perspectives to look at because we have both the young and old in this community. So we need to address both of those. Not all the older citizens are on social media. A lot of them don't look at that aspect of it. So we do need to use social media, but we also need to have those coffee shop communications or the outreach as well to the older citizens.
And what do you believe is the single most compelling issue facing Rome and why?
I believe it's growth. It's coming, whether we like it or not. It's coming down both sides of the highway to intersect right here, and it needs to be managed properly and looked at properly, and we need to get out ahead of that.
And based on what you know about our city government, what do you see as the top 3 priorities for Rome and why?
Sure. That would be communication, transparency and communication, having more and more open government. That's something I've been a part of Wise County is working with that transparency and keeping things open and communicating with the public on all aspects of things that we're doing. The other is budget, making sure that our finances are used properly so that the tax rates can stay low, but that we can also accomplish the things that need to be accomplished. And the last one would be the growth and managing that, looking at other cities that have experienced that, seeing how they handled it, good or bad, and learning from those experiences.
Right. And the city council must render decisions regarding the implementation of policies and/or programs that may be somewhat difficult. Are you willing to take on that responsibility of making those decisions that are in the best interest of the public, even though they may be somewhat difficult? And how would you react to the negative ramifications of such decisions?
Yes, I feel I can handle making those decisions, the tough decisions, and that are right for the city and the citizens. And I'm not one that's going to engage with the negativity, and that's just something I'm not going to do. I'll feel free to explain my decision and why and communicate that, but I'm not going to be a part of the negativity and gossiping and running around and going behind.
And I have one final question for you based on your resume. So you're the Wise County Asset Manager,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay. Do you foresee any potential for a conflict of interest? And if there was, would you recuse yourself from the council decision?
Yes, I would. One of the things that I do as part of my job is I do handle the contracts for the county. I don't make the decisions on them and I don't sign them, but I do handle the processing of them. And so if there were any decisions that needed to be made regarding contracts, I would recuse myself or abstain from voting on that just to make sure that there was no conflict of interest in any way on that.
That's all I have. Thank you. Anybody else?
I have one question, and I should have asked Casey too, but what was it that made you decide to run for council?
I've been watching since I've been in Rome for a while now. It's been something kind of in the back of my head, and I feel like this was kind of the time and season of my life to do that and just be able to hopefully make a difference and bring, like I said, the objectivity and a little bit of balance to what I see on the council. Thank you.
Do we want to ask Casey that real quick as well, since we're done? Not Donna?
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
All right, this morning. Going for the city council position was something I've been thinking about for a long time. And I was thinking about doing it for Fort Worth when we lived over there, but it was just so, Fort Worth just didn't fit. And so when we moved here, I was like, it reminded me of exactly like Roanoke. And I was like, I can do a lot of good here. And I was talking to my wife and brought that up with her, and she was kind of hesitant with it at first. And then as time went on, I was like, you know what, I'm going to put in for it. I'm going to run for the next one. And then the spot came open. But I knew moving in here, it was just, I knew eventually I'm going to get into city politics. And I knew eventually it was just a matter of time. And it was just something I always wanted to do. And I knew, I can speak right now. I knew when we moved in, I had the contacts and I have the background and I have that experience to bring a lot of good for the city and to push that growth and bring in the right businesses. And basically, I knew it was always something that I wanted to do. But as much as I've been doing working for a city for 11 years, so I knew I've got the established connections and experience to bring that to the city and really help this city. Sorry. I'm off Clear Fork behind the two middle school, the elementary school in Chisholm. We moved there about a year ago. So I love it over here. Because our kids can jump out the back gate and run to school. So I loved it.
Have you been listening to the meetings?
Yes. No. Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Ty, would you like to ask Diana the same question about the meetings, or Donna, since we've added some as we've gone along?
Well, she said she was listening to the meetings, didn't you? Yeah, she said, I remember her saying that, that's why.
Okay, perfect, thank you. The next name I have is Mr. Loft. Online with us this evening.
Hello. Hello. I am unmuted. Can you hear me? Hello.
Mr. Loftus, can you hear us?
Yes, I can now. Can you hear me?
We can't hear you just yet. Hold on just a moment, please.
Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, testing. Hello. Hello.
Mr. Loftus, our city administrator is going to give you a call. We're having difficulties hearing on the TV, so she's going to put you up to the speaker on the phone.
Okay.
Go ahead. How does this work best? All right.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
My name is Randall Loftus. My wife and I moved to Rome. I've got to turn my down. Okay. My wife and I moved to Rome in the end of January 2021. I signed up I sent in the application because I felt like the community needed help. And so I was willing to volunteer and serve that position. I've got 40 years in information technology experience and have served in various leadership roles within IT. And so that's why I sent in my application.
All right. We have some questions for you as well. As a council member, what would you do differently to get citizen engagement that has not already been tried?
I think one thing is that we need to have more in-person communication with our constituents. For instance, I think everybody agrees that infrastructure and road improvements are needed. I think part of the issue is there's a misunderstanding of what everyone's willing to put up for it. So I think you could go directly to citizens and say, how much do you want to pay additional every month for upgraded roads? And, is it $20? Is it $100? That's the kind of thing. I think that if you have that conversation, they'll realize that maybe a bond issue does make sense. That's one thing I can think of.
Okay. And what do you believe is the single most compelling issue facing Rome and why?
Well, we have infrastructure. Obviously, that's number one there. And then we have growth. It's coming at us. I think if we could do public and private partnerships in order to assist with some of that growth, perhaps leverage some assets that the city has, such as properties, in conjunction with private entities to put together solutions that would benefit all the community and private industry.
All right. And leading into the next question, based on what you know about our city government, What do you see as the top 3 priorities for Rome and why?
To me, I've noticed that maintenance has been neglected over the years. That's very important to me. If we're going to spend a lot of money on infrastructure and not have a plan to maintain it, I think we're just doomed to lose there. So I think those have to go hand in hand. Communication is very important, and then management of growth.
All right, and finally, the city council must render decisions regarding the implementation of policies and/or programs that may be somewhat difficult. Are you willing to take on that responsibility of making those decisions that are in the best interest of the public, even though they may be somewhat difficult? And how would you react to the negative ramifications of such decisions?
You know, that's one key thing with a leader. A leader has to have a vision, and you know, I think we all agree. We've all got an idea of what Rome, what we want it to be, and then the other part of that is that leaders often have to make decisions that are personally distressful in order to meet those goals. So I don't think I have any problem doing that. I think, again, the issue comes down to communication and being able to possibly explain in a reasonable manner why certain decisions were made. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Well, I need to ask you the same questions I asked everyone else. So what was it that made you decide to run for city council?
Well, I viewed that I felt like, you know, the community needed assistance, and I was willing to offer to do my part. And so that's why I sent in that application.
That was it. The other one was if you watch the meetings, and I know you do.
Okay, the attorney has advised me to let you guys know that Randall Loftus is on planning and zoning.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Pastor Beal, you know, accidents happen sometimes.
And as it has it, Mr. Moore, you are next person to the lectern, please.
Thanks, Shana. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Moore. I'm a dad of 5. Got 2 adopted kids. Been in Wise County since 1993. We moved to Bywell Estate 16 years ago. I pastor a group. Been involved and very highly involved with almost things like this, you might say. Church boards for almost 30 years. A lot of decisions were made that were fun. A lot of decisions were made that were not so much fun. And you know, you have to take the good with the bad. And that's just the way it is. My wife told me many, many times and said, I know you love politics. I'm a Hannity fan, so if you don't like Hannity, you probably won't like me. But I'm a Christian conservative. I just will say up front, I know in small town politics, you're not supposed to talk about that stuff, but I like to be upfront about who I am. I don't like the negativity, but I know how to handle negativity because I've been doing this a long, long time. I believe this, without vision, this gentleman said earlier, he said something about vision. I believe this. The word of God says this, without vision, my people perish. This town will perish without some good vision. I promise you it will. It won't grow it won't become a diamond in the rough. It will become the rough. So people have to have vision. You get vision by being in unity, period. End of story. I've been on church boards for, like I say, over 30 years. I've never been on a board, someone like a council here, where people came together and fussed and argued and fought, and we got anything seriously accomplished of any kind of positive nature. So I believe that God's put me here for a reason, and I hope you say so too. Uh, Man, I drive these streets every day, brother. Streets, 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 and more streets. I mean, I was almost late here because of the tail end traffic streaming down 114. And I think that somehow there's got to be a plan in the future to get some things straightened out here. And when they opened up this new addition down here by Chisholm Trail, oh, Lord God. Has anybody even thought about that besides me? What's going to happen to the traffic there on a 2-lane road? Dear Lord in heaven. I don't know. But I'd say streets. Well, this is my like 5th month of coming here on a council meeting night. And I thought a lot about that. I'm glad you asked that question because number one, budget. I'm a fiscal conservative, no two ways about that. I don't believe in going dead up to your neck until you get to the very edge where you're like going, oh, are we going to fall off into the abyss? Or are we going to make it next year? A good example is the nation we live in right now. I heard an example today said we have more debt than we have output. That is not a place to be. And that needs to go from the smallest community to the largest place, better known as DC, the White House. The next one on my list would be communication between everyone. There's got to be better communication between you and you and you and you and you and you and you to where we all know what's going on together. And you know what? I'll just say it. This may sound corny to you. You got to do it in love. You can't do it in hate. You can't do it in strife. Where strife and envy is every evil work. That's what the word of God says. I'm getting a little churchy on you, but I'm a churchy guy, okay? So you can't do anything in strife and envy. Nothing gets accomplished. Number one, growth in unity. There's got to be a unity, and that's the community, not just this council, but that's every single person in this area. Once again, we come right back to the infighting or whatever. You're not going to get anything done in the long run, and if you do, it's going to take a whole lot longer to get it done. Well, I am an event coordinator. I'm also a radio broadcaster. I do a radio show every Sunday night, and I've been doing radio broadcasting since the early 90s. And there are how many big events are in this town? I don't know how many of you guys are familiar, ladies and gentlemen, are familiar with the car show they do in Decatur every month. I was the one that started that. That thing draws people from all over the county. There's not, I mean, when we have something here, it's like an Easter egg hunt, or it's small. It's always, you can't grow if you think small all the time. There's no way. You have to think bigger. You got to get, how do I like to put this when I'm minister? You got to get out of your box. There's some things this community needs to do to get out of the box. I've even thought about coming to you guys, and I may do this in the future. So, hey, I'm a car show guy. I'm a motorcycle guy. These are people that are family members. We're not talking about outlaws or crazy people, drunken fools. We're talking about events. Has anybody ever even been to the Decatur Car Show? That is an event that draws around 80 to 120 cars. People are enjoying their self out there. You've got the community coming together. There's got to be some way, somehow, to draw this community together so we can know what each one is, what are our desires, what do we want to see for the future. Well, as a minister, I've taken on a whole lot of negative decisions, and everybody can get. I have a saying: you can get mad, but you can get glad in the same pants you got mad in. And the quicker you get glad and get off of mad, the more progress you're going to make, and you're going to be able to go down the road. You're going to be able to go to your constituents. You're going to be able to go to your fellow council member, your police chief, and everyone and say, "Hey, man. Maybe I got mad, maybe I blew up." We have a rule in my family, and it's this. If you can walk over to someone and say, "Forgive me," and move on, let's move on. And nobody in this room very few of us are going to agree with every single thing that comes across this board. But guess what? We all have the ability to say, "Forgive me. How can I change just a little bit?" Maybe we can learn how to give a little this way, give a little that way. And that's the way my ministry works. I have to give, but there's always some taking too. There's got to be a balance in this.
Thank you.
I think I might already know the answer to this, but what was it that made you decide to run for council?
My wife.
Yeah, that one I didn't know.
She said, she's always told me, said, if you ever run for politics, somebody's going to kill you. And I said, well, maybe you can start on a small town scale. Maybe nobody's packing except the chief. Okay. So, no, I really feel in my heart that I'm almost 70 years old, but my wife says I'm the oldest teenager on earth. So I act like it. I do not want, I'm not going to get old. That's just the way it is. Because sometimes old people just act like old people. And I don't want to act like a old people. I want to have some vibrancy. I still do things with I got a 16-year-old daughter at home. And I have another one who's only 17. Because we adopted 2 kids when they were babies. So they have kept this old man young. I like young ideas. I like new ideas. And several people said, they'd like this to be like Roanoke. I don't know if I want a Roanoke right here, right now. We got a long way to go before we get any Roanoke going on. Long ways to go. Anybody ever been around the traffic around Roanoke on a Friday evening? Think about that. They just announced today they announced they're going to open up a Universal Studios at 380 on the tollway in Frisco with no road changes. Tell me how that's going to work out. So you can't just say, all right, we're going to do this. There's always got to be, the older I get, guys, the more I figure out, man, you got to look out there before you just go, we're doing this. So that's my answer. Anything else?
Any other questions?
No, but I want to say something, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Before we really discuss who. I just want to
Yeah,
thank.
he can
Oh, I'm
sit down,
sorry.
right? Nobody's got questions for him? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to spill any more water.
Okay. I do want to thank 5 people that filled out their application. I spent a lot of time today looking at them. There were a couple that I did not know, but I knew from what I read and from the folks that I did know that what we had in front of us were 5 great applicants. And so I felt the need to ask you, all 5 of you, whomever we choose tonight, please don't take it as anything negative. Instead, I encourage you on January, the whatever day, that applications can be taken for the upcoming election, please do not hesitate. You have a gift, you have a calling. I can tell that from every person that spoke. Do not think that you are not needed, because you are needed. And so I want to encourage you, just short of begging you, to please consider filling out that application and giving the city some choices. And I just felt like that all 5 of you are very strong candidates. And so I want to encourage you to do that. I too was an appointee. I too came into a job totally not involved. I had not been to but one other city council meeting. We'd owned our property for quite a while, but we'd worked away from here, and so I was pretty ignorant about many things. But I want, no one told me the things that I really should have known. And so as a council potential member, I'm going to give you a few hints. This job takes almost daily effort. It requires homework to prepare for meetings. It requires learning city history, current needs, planning for the future. It requires checking your city email every day. You should accept that your first impressions about city business may not be correct, because there's so much to learn. What seems simple is usually complicated. You will be criticized no matter how hard you work or how pure your motivation is. You must accept all the ordinances and laws and work within them. You must be an independent thinker, at the same time remembering the oath of office matters. You have the opportunity to make a difference and share the best of yourself, to be humble, but mostly you must be fearless. I want to thank you again for filling out those applications, and I'm just blown away that what a wonderful group, and thank you for coming.
You know, listen to all 5 of these people. They all similar responses in some of the issues that we're facing, different perspectives, different backgrounds, but they're all, I think, well qualified people. And this is going to be a very tough decision for us to make, because we're trying to do it in one night that takes months of campaigning and discussions and hundreds of people voting to try and figure out their best person. I think any one of them can fill in and do this. So we got a tough decision.
I think we should.
Don't have anybody that you want to nominate?
Yes, we want to go into executive session.
(6:54), we'll convene into executive session.
Ms. Wilson, I'm going to leave my stuff out here. Thank you.
All right, 7:12, we'll reconvene from executive session. I think we're going to have a nomination.
So before we have a nomination, after conferring with our legal attorney, I just want to see if this changes anybody's mind. If you are appointed tonight, you do have to, you will be in this position until May. So you will have to file again in the next few weeks to fill out the remainder of that seat, which would be for 1 year. So you're appointed until May, but then you still have to run if you want to finish that 1 year term. So does that change anybody's mind? No? Okay. Elaine?
It was exactly what I thought it would be. It was difficult. And to tell you, I've been on the council for 5 years. I'm the longest tenured person. To have a group like this, to make these kind of applications, all of you strong, like that you are, what a wonderful, horrible situation to be in, And so what I'm saying to all 5 of you, please do not hesitate to go see Miss Shana as soon as she can take your paperwork to run for city council. I encourage you to do that, to give the city choices. And my gosh, good choices. You are excellent, every one of you. And it was difficult, very difficult. But one of the things that we try to do is to have a consensus, and that's what we were working on. And it was a lot of discussion. But let me just tell you that it was mostly discussion about the good things. And so I just feel very uplifted today from this experience. So I make a motion that we consider get Mr. Shoemake for this position. And as Josh said, this is a position that this appointment is only good until the first part of May. And if you have any desire to be on the city council, even for place 5, you'll have to run for office. And that's just the procedure. So,
Okay. So that's a nomination.
yes, please.
We'll have a second.
I second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Shoemake. Come on up. You got the swear in stuff, Shana? Actually, you probably need to be over in front of the microphone, don't you? Sorry.
I, Casey Shoemake, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of Councilmember Place 5, City of Rome, of the state of Texas, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, so help me God. I, Casey Shoemake, do solemnly swear or affirm that I have not directly or indirectly paid, offered, promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or thing of value or promised any public office or employment for the giving or withholding of a vote at the election at which I was elected, or as a reward to secure my appointment for confirmation, whichever the case may be, so help me God.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. This is all under the consent agenda. Do you want to vote on it on each separate thing, or do you want to vote on it as the consent?
Traditionally, I'm used to council voting on it in a block unless they want to pull something for conversation.
Okay. Minutes of City Council regular session, March 24th. Minutes of City Council regular session dated December 8th. Minutes of City Council regular session dated December 12th. Council approval action adding City Administrator Amanda DeGan to all bank accounts as signatory. Council approval action adding City Administrator Amanda DeGan to the Wells Fargo credit card. And council approval action regarding police department property and evidence disposal, but that one I didn't know anything about.
So Chief is here and can speak to that if you have questions. This would give us an alternative option to list things that are needed to be auctioned off for the city on a site called propertyroom.com. They will assist staff with pricing and listing, which takes some of the burden off of staff, but it also gives us the option to still use some of the other auction companies that we've used in the past.
Okay.
It simply expands the services that we can use internally.
Do we have an idea of what things are get disposed of?
It could be anything from old filing cabinets at the fire or the police department, and what else, Chief?
Really, we're going to have a discussion. I recommend you go ahead and vote on the other side of the item. Take this back.
Okay.
Unless there's something else on the consent agenda that's going to take off. If you're good with the first five, go ahead and vote.
Let's go ahead and vote on the first five. Do I ever hear a motion?
Well, I make a motion to just approve the whole consent agenda.
I'll second that.
So I can't know anything about number 6.
It was in the packet that was distributed on Monday.
I've got the packet, Josh. Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
That's how the cookie crumbles. All right. Who was the second on that? Ty was the. Okay. Any staff reports, board minutes? Okay. Public hearings. We've got to call it public hearing. Kent City Council to conduct a public hearing to consider replat. One tract being legally described as acres 3.00, abstract A-817JC, also known as 401 East Hickory Street, Rhome, Texas 76078. We'll call this into call a public hearing at 7:20. We're going to recess this item until February 6th. Can I do them both, Mr. Adkins?
Just 2 separate ones.
All right. Okay, then we'll close the public hearing also at 7:20 on that one. We'll go to the next one. City Council to conduct a public hearing to consider a specific use permit legally described as Block 7.543, Original Town, Rome, 0.9900 acres, also known as 311 Old Mill Road, Rome, Texas 76078. We'll call this at 7:21. We're going to recess this item to March 6th. Close the public hearing also at 7:21. We'll move on to regular agenda. Number 2, replat one tract being legally described as acres 3.00, abstract A-817JC, also known as 401 East Hickory Street, Rome, Texas 76078. That one's going to fall under the other, so we're going to move on to number 3. We're going to postpone that until February 6th. And then application for a special use permit legally described as Block 7.543, Original Town, Rome, 0.9900 acres, also known as 311 Old Mill Road, Rome, Texas,
76078. That one will be recessed until March 6th. The next item, number 4, Walnut Creek Water Agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Debus is going to present this to council as this was something that was in progress prior to my taking my position, and he will be better suited to discuss this with you.
Thank you, Mr. Gann. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are currently in a water agreement with Walnut Creek SUD. They provide up to 1 million gallons a day, and this was dated back from October 12th, 1999. We've been in negotiations with them for quite some time on increasing that allotment by approximately 500,000 gallons per day to support residential and commercial development that's coming in. Walnut Creek SUD did agree to increase this daily supply through October 12th of 2029. So that gives us about 7 more years of that. And we in turn agree to reimburse them for the cost of labor and materials to construct an additional pump station at a cost of approximately $135,000. But that will allow us to continue to bring in residential and commercial developments, which we are unable to do so at this time without more water. Any questions?
I just have something just very brief, and
Yes, ma'am.
because I understood that the increase, most of that increase is being brought to light to accommodate with the rolling B development, the PMB development.
They are entitled to half of that.
Okay. And I know that we're going to have to put in an additional pump station. 2123 was the location. Where is that? Is that over by Bubbo Crossing?
2120, I don't know that number.
That's what it said. It's got to be.
Oh, where they're pumping it from? I don't know what that term is.
Well, no, that's where they want the pumping station, I understood.
Mm-hmm. So are you asking about the 135,000 for the pump?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm wondering if if PMB is
they have
benefiting, do we get, where's the money going to come from?
From
Are we going to
PMB.
get any kind of reimbursement?
Yeah, they're paying for that.
They are paying for it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They have already provided, I believe, $1 million toward future upgrades, and that would be part of that. They have also given verbal commitments to backstop any future.
Okay, because that was not specified in this. I didn't understand that. It didn't appear to be specified for the additional pump, because it says the city shall reimburse the district.
Yes, because we're in contract with them, and then RVR has already given us money for that purpose.
I have also talked with RVR about the fact that if this is approved by council this evening, then we would need to modify the development agreement that we currently have with them, and that would likely be addressed in that agreement.
All right. Got a motion? Any questions? And we'll get a motion.
So just to reiterate, this is just approving what we've already discussed in the past about getting extra water for RVR.
Yes, this has been in negotiations. At least for a year, maybe 2. We've been trying to get this done, and we were just fortunate to be able to get that done while I was over at City Hall. And if anybody's listening from Walnut Creek, I do appreciate it.
Then I would like to motion to approve the signing of the amended water agreement with Walnut Creek, as well as the additional agreement with RVR as our city administrator advised.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 5, fiber optic service to the water tower for Northwest Independent School District.
Can y'all hear me? Okay, here we go. I'm going to stand over this one. As your agenda commentary informs, for those listening at home, we have representatives from Northwest ISD here with us. Director of Safety and Security, Mr. Mike Conklin's here to answer questions, along with some of their IT personnel. They maintain communication equipment inside our water tower. The equipment that's maintained in there is utilized for daily bus routes, operations, and most importantly, emergency communications. Fiber optic was recently brought into the city of Rome, and fiber optic lines have been placed throughout our city that Northwest ISD would like to run a connection from the closest fiber optic line to their equipment in the water tower because it will improve the connection quality, speed, and reliability, and would also allow us, the city, in the future to tie into that connection if we need it at a later date. So what we're asking is that staff allow NISD to move forward with their plan to install a fiber optic line to the water tower. And like I said, Mr. Conklin is here along with his personnel from NISD if you guys have some questions.
Is NISD covering the cost of this?
Yes, they have graciously offered to, if we will give them access to put this in, they will bear the burden of cost for what it will take.
Okay. I would just, if y'all don't mind, I'd just like to hear a brief overview of how this helps out our local school system. So if we could have the gentleman up.
That's working smarter. That's smarter, not harder. I'm just a cop, sorry.
Council, Mayor, thank you for the time. So we've been in this partnership since 2009, and it's been very successful. Before we had the communications in the water tower, the bus routes here in Rome, we were on an analog system, and that signal was trying to go all the way back to our old stadium there. And we were really having trouble getting bus communication out this way, especially when they went down in towards Aurora, that area. In 2009, Rome was gracious to allow us to put radio equipment in the radio tower and also on the top. And that also allowed us to bridge that communication from the water tower wirelessly to our football stadium. That's about a 9-mile run. And what we find is that when we have bad weather or we have some inclement issues, sometimes that's not always a real solid communication option. So this allows us to not only keep that as a back run if the fiber was to fail, but it gives us strong communications day-to-day operations. How it affects Rome, like Chief said, is it gives not only us the ability to strengthen our daily communications and emergency communications, but it also allows you guys to, if you guys decide to use that high-speed connection, just throwing stuff out there, I don't know how your water, I don't know if you're doing it through radio communications now to get your water levels and all those things. Cameras around your site for security, it gives that high-speed option, so it doesn't have to be wirelessly through a LTE connection, those type of things. And ultimately, it benefits all the students that live here in your community. Not, like I said, mainly bus. That's our day-to-day operations. Chisholm Trail uses it for their daily communications, and it allows us at our central call station to remain in direct communication with all of those daily functions. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
So I guess to me, it sounds like a benefit to the city without a cost to the city. So unless y'all have anything else, I'd like to motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Second, Kathy?
I appreciate y'all's time. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I know my father-in-law is a bus
Number
driver for
6.
y'all, so I'm sure he's going to be happy to.
Number
Here.
6,
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you.
thank you. Public notifications and community engagement. City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. This is actually going to take the form of 2 parts, and Shana may need to, excuse me, weigh in if you have any questions. Before I took my position here, council asked staff to look at the option of either using Code Red or some other type of texting type system that would alert residents of weather events or other items going on within the city. And so what you may know is we have used Code Red before. I'm not sure the impetus, but the contract was actually canceled in 2021. So she did reach out to both Code Red and iWork, which is another form of communication system that we can use. Both of them have differing costs as it relates to our ability to allow people to sign up to receive notifications from us. If there's a weather event, if we have a main break, if we have a community event, et cetera, et cetera. Back to some of the things that all 5 of the candidates to a great extent talked about is Rome can utilize some different options to communicate better and engage the residents of Rome. It is difficult, especially when you have the railway and you have the highways that divide the neighborhoods, and we don't have a localized place for people to gather. That would help us as one part of a 2-part solution to get information out, to help with that transparency issue that I have heard brought up in several meetings. So if you are interested in using either one of those systems, Shayna contacted them, and Code Red, you do have some of their proposals in your packet. They both have different structures. So Code Red charges a base of about $1,900 a year, but then they charge you per segment, per text of 2 cents. So it will go up from the $1,900 based on our usage. iWork is something that we already have a partnership with, but they charge $3,000 a year, and we do think that we could negotiate them down from that number. And they allow 25,000 texts included in their base price. So if council wants us to pursue something along these lines, we would need direction from you as to, yes, you'd like us to pursue it, which company you would prefer that we reach out to, and either go with Code Red or try to negotiate with iWork and then determine a way that we can fold this into our daily practices. There is another system that I learned about when I went to Wise County for an emergency operations conversation with their group up there, and it's called AlertSense. It is also an option available to Rome where our residents can sign up for this and they can receive those weather-related emergency alerts. However, anything that we send out that crosses lines, jurisdictional lines, they would want us to have approved through them first. So we would not have quite the autonomy with the AlertSense through the county as we would have with one of these 2 other companies. And I'm happy to answer any questions, as is Shayna, as it relates to whether we want to move forward with this, what the costs were, and how we might use it. Yes, ma'am.
When we had Code Red before, one of the difficulties that we encountered was it's only as good as the citizen taking the responsibility to sign themselves up. And I suspect, don't know for a fact, that the reason that was canceled because there weren't very many citizens that chose to sign themselves up. And so that's a step that cannot be ignored. We can purchase the service, we can put it out there, but ultimately that communication depends upon the citizens taking responsibility for themselves.
You're
Is that
correct.
not correct?
Well, communication is got both the receiver and the sender involved in it. And so, yes, it would require the residents to sign up and be proactive in that particular approach. However, the city can also advertise that we have this partnership and that this is available to residents, and we can put it out through social media, through one of the other options that I'd like to talk to you about this evening, as well as the website, on some of our water and utility billing. I did go back and read through. The previous administrator did a great job of keeping documentation. And so I went back and read all of the emails back and forth between Code Red, the contract, and what we had in our files. And one thing I couldn't find was how many actually signed up for it when we had it the last time. But it's not a service that I would recommend we use if we're not going to have participation on both sides, both the residents and the city.
I think part of the other discussion was that we just didn't use it enough to warrant spending that much. So whatever plan we go with, we need to make sure the city actually utilizes it as well. So.
And I will say, if this is in response to the tornadoes that came through and that weather-related event, we don't want to be the central location for weather events for our residents. They need to look to people who are plugged into this all the time. It's not something that staff can keep up with, and we don't want to put ourselves in a position where they're looking to us and we miss one and something happens. So that is one of the drawbacks to both of these systems, is if we put it out there as if all of your weather events are going to come through Code Red or iWork and the city's going to push it out to you, that's really not in our best interest. The alert sense that comes to the county may or may not be a better option for us, because they do have dedicated staff through their EOP that runs this and handles it for the county. But they would also they can sign up as Rhome residents, but they may get other information as well. So it just depends on what good are we going to get out of the system for the money that we're spending through that lens, and how active the citizens are going to be. Code Red in my previous cities have been used for things such as notifications of water breaks, boil water notices, ice events, how we're treating the streets, but it was not used frequently. It was used more on once a quarter basis at most.
On the one you said that has the county input, would that be from that emergency management team that they newly established?
Yes.
Okay. So in staff's opinion and experience, which one of these is going to benefit us and the residents best? What's going to be easier for the city to use, but also easier for the residents to use?
I would recommend, if we're going to trial one of these, that we look at the one with the county. One, they have the staff to push this forward, and two, it's less expensive too. There are other cities within Wise County that have partnered for this particular system, and we would just be another partner with them that could benefit our residents, and certainly it would be the most cost effective. If it takes off and if it seems to not serve our needs at some point in the future, then we could transition to something else. But I believe when I talked to Cody today, he said the cost was $500 a year. It's based on residency, the number of people you have in your city. And he said Decatur and I believe Bridgeport were paying $1,500. So we are not nearly as large as any of those. And so he thinks we'd probably come in at the 500 tier, at most 750. But again, that's a year, where the others were 2,000 minimum to whatever we could negotiate with iWork.
And it does similar functions as these two.
And coming that it is a dedicated event through them with their EOP, that would probably be our best bet, in my opinion. They have some other, through that meeting that I went to, they have some other partnerships that we could potentially leverage as well, that I will bring forward either later this month or February for you to look at.
So do you think that we need to table this until you come back to it?
It's a separate program.
Okay.
This alert sense is specifically for weather-related events. The other one is more of a social support program for veterans, seniors, and others within Wise County. Kind of two partnerships, but two different topics.
No, I think I like the number, the amount, looking for the best information that we can offer our citizens. And if you ever lived through a tornado, I'd pay $1,000 if the system is better than the $500 one. But if that system is doable and has merit and works for us, but like you said, we can, if it's not a fit, then we can make a change. So
Yeah,
I'd like to make a motion, we go for it.
Going to go to the county.
For the county.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Okay, so moving on to the second part of this particular conversation, I've heard from not only council and through some of your previous meetings that a lot of the residents in Rome are looking for more information to be put out relative to city government events, the city in general, other good news stories that could be a part of our community and help increase that engagement level. I am very familiar with a particular program called Constant Contact. Some of you may have received it in your work world. You've gotten newsletters through that particular program. It is a fairly effective way to push out electronic information, but I will also tell you I'm a firm believer that your population, any population in a city, has a cross of folks who like to receive their information through different methodologies. Relying simply on electronic is not going to get it out. We are going to have to look through a lens of electronic and printed media to people to let them know what's going on in the city, to help educate them on things from budget to events as it relates to things at the Veterans Park or at the park itself. And so this will be the first step along that path. Constant Contact, as I put in your commentary, has a cost of either roughly $10 to $70 a month. I think $70 is way on the extreme given how many folks that we have in Rome, as well as we don't need all the bells and whistles on Constant Contact. So I think probably a good area that we'd come in per month is $25. This can be used, I can take some of the information that I push out to you all through the council update and through other things on Facebook and social media, and we can use that in a newsletter and again put that out to the residents. And it would be very beneficial to us. Many cities use this platform. So I need to know if that's something council wants us to pursue as a tool in our toolbox as it relates to communications and engagement, or if this is something that is not yet come of age here in the city.
Would you tell me that cost one more time, please?
I think it will probably run us about $20 to $25 a month. They have a package that starts, I have a call into their representative. I was unable to reach them prior to this, but just doing research on their website, it starts at about $9.99 a month based on the basic package, and then it goes up to the full bells and whistles, which is $70, but I don't believe we need that.
And that is a price to the city, or is that per person?
No, it's to the city. So we sign up. I create the newsletters, and again, much like you talked about before, Mrs. Priest, as residents sign up for this information, because I will need email addresses for which to push it out to them. As they sign up and we advertise this and we build the database, then we will get more and more people exponentially. And as word of mouth goes through the city, then you can tell your neighbors and your friends that this has come to Rome and have them sign up for it. And we'll put something on the website that allows for that. Julie can also sign them up when they come in for water. It's not difficult. And then each month when we publish that, or every other month when we publish that, however often we can make that happen, then we will be enhancing the engagement and the communications.
Well, I'm going to tell you, after listening to these 5 folks and their application and their number 1, 2, and 3 communication was on every person's list. And so I think that we have to make that effort, is my personal opinion.
Again, I'm definitely interested. There hasn't been a meeting go by that somebody hasn't mentioned communication, but I would like to hear a more firm cost on what that's going to be. So I think you would just need direction from the council to investigate that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fine with looking into that to see what it's going to cost.
Okay. So the other item that you may have noticed or had a chance to look is we've upped some posts on Facebook. I've had a few people interact with us as the city through that, and that is something that I intend to continue as long as I have good content that promotes the good things going on in Rome, as well as I've heard from some folks that if we could post things such as if around the holidays trash pickup may or may not change, other things of that nature, we can certainly do all of those. That as well will need to advertise to get more people signed up to the page. We could use that social media outlet. I'm not skilled in Instagram. I can certainly get there at some point, but again, given a cross section of the residents in Rome, it will depend on whether they even want to use it, and that may be something in a year or so that we could look at. Same thing with Twitter. That's just not where I live. Facebook is about the extent of it, and I've learned a lot in the past 30 days about how to use the city site and post things. And so keep watching that and keep telling people that we're pushing information out on there, and there'll be photos of things, because it is helpful for you all if you can just click on it and maybe get a notification that says quickly City of Rome posted something, and I'll try and keep it very brief, but yet have something that you can visualize as well so that you know what's going on in the city. We can also use that for construction updates on roadways. If we hear anything from TxDOT as it relates to highways, we can do that as well. Things I have done in the past with social media is if we have a major accident on a road, we can put that on social media, and then as soon as first responders and public safety notify me that it's cleared, then I'll go on there and post that through that lens. So we are making some strides in that area. So it's not just a one-sided approach to communication and engagement. And again, Mrs. Priest, it is only as good as the receiver as well as the communicator. One thing that we do not do, or that I would not recommend, and we have reached out to some folks because in a recent post from the police department, we had some negative images put up on the police department site. We did remove those because they were not appropriate at best. So we will, again, when it has information on there, to please keep it kind and respectful and supportive, and that's really what it's for.
So you're not doing TikTok videos? No. I think social media is where we're at in this day and age, especially with the growth coming in. I think, like you said, as long as we remain positive, upbeat, and just keep putting out good information, I think we'll be good.
So that kind of rounds us back around to what I talked about as far as direct mail outs. For instance, one of the directions that council gave to us was to reach out to some of our residents in the city, and we don't really have a good way to segregate. If an issue deals with one development, we don't have a good way to do that. The nice thing about Constant Contact, if they are signed up, is I can isolate that by Crown Point or Bywell or some of the other neighborhoods, and I can send out to just those rather than just inundate everyone with something. So I think it will be very helpful. So we'll look into that. I'll bring you back a firm price. But that's kind of one of the things that in my first 30 days I have noticed that there are some things that we can do fairly easily to help increase that transparency and the communication about what's going on in the city so that people are plugged in and they do know what we're doing.
All right. Number 7, agreement with financial consultants to assist with remaining transitions to STW.
Thank you, Mayor. As noted in your commentary, you all approved in 2022 that the finances for the city moved to a consolidated cash system with funds contained within that particular account, which is absolutely what we needed to do. I was told when I started that we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 22 or 27 different bank accounts at different banks, which then means that your staff has to reconcile each of those every month, and it increases your risk of error and or it increases the workload when it's not necessary. So by consolidating all that into one account at one bank with funds contained within, it gives us a greater handle of where we are in our financial walk for the city and where our assets lay. One of the things that we also did in tandem with this is we have an internal software system through STW that was purchased by OpenGov, and they have made some changes within their program where they kind of, in no fault of their own, it was a popular program. A lot of cities signed up, and they found that they had a tough time supporting some of the transition all at the beginning, so we had to move it through in stages. So we're at the stage now where we need some outside assistance to bring in some help for our AP and AR clerk to finish setting up general ledger codes and revising some internal procedures and setting up the funds so that we can make sure that we have it all set moving forward for this fiscal year and finishing out the last so we can bring the auditor in. Because as you know, the auditor works for you as a council, not for the city or the staff per se, and we need to get all that buttoned up so that he can audit and bring the information back to you all. The other thing I noticed upon taking my position is that it doesn't appear as if Rhome has determined how much it costs a day to run the city. We need to know that, because you look at your fund balance through the lens of how much do you actually have in your account, how much does it cost you a day to provide services, so that if there is a major disruptive event in this city, we know how much we have in the bank and how long we can go if our revenue has some sort of a swing. It's called elasticity in your revenue. If your sales and use tax changes dramatically, if the economy goes down dramatically, if property values go down dramatically, we have to be able to adjust, and we need a cushion in there. That is one of the things that I went back and pulled all the budgets from 2017 through current and looked at where we have moved that forward over the years. This is the next step in your budget evolution, which will help considerably for folks who want to know, what is your financial position? How healthy are we? What do we need to continue to put into fund balance to get to a minimum days? And then what financial policies does council want to set for staff to follow? For instance, most cities have a policy that either says so much percentage of your general fund money that's unencumbered is kept in there as a 50 or 60% to make sure you're healthy. Or they'll most use a day. Most cities have a 90-day reserve that they pass in their financial policies. It depends on how elastic your revenue is and how much it's going to swing with different things as to whether you want more money in there or whether the 90 is sufficient. So if we can get this converted, then we can present that to you all through financial updates on a quarterly basis so that you can have that tool to tell, okay, are we tracking? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? That goes back to some of the conversations that you all had earlier about budget amendments. And we will talk through those, but that's the next evolution of your budget. Right now, back in 17, we were using a fairly rudimentary line item. I noticed some of the last ones that I believe Mrs. Northrop was working on was still line item based, but it had considerably more detail in the explanation. We need to now evolve that into a story. What are we using the money for? How is it going to benefit the residents? What are we doing for infrastructure or water and wastewater? How are you reinvesting in your community? And so that's kind of the next step through. And by bringing in these consultants, they will not only help staff with that, but they will establish the fund balance, your number of days that you have, and they can assist us in drafting those policies. You see that the amount on here is not to exceed $5,000, and I don't think it will go that high at all. But I do want to just give it an estimate in talking with these individuals. We did get some consultation with them for free for a little bit, but it's exceeded what they can do in just a short time. So if we have council approval to bring them in, then I think that will set us up very nicely for what we're going to go through in this next budget cycle, which will give you the information that you need to make your budgetary decisions. Any questions?
Are these independent financial consultants, or are they with?
They work for several cities, but they are both retired from the municipal government world as either a finance director or a senior clerk in processes and internal improvements.
I'm wondering if perhaps you can answer the question, because the STW, we put that on, that came on with us 2018, 2019, and it's my understanding that when they did, this was the 2021, August 2021, when the OpenGov was purchased, that I thought that OpenGov bought them and took them over, and I had the impression that STW was no more.
Correct. They've had some.
Because they hadn't done any upgrades or anything to it.
Well, it's not unusual for those technology companies to buy one from the other. OpenGov has been moving into the market at many of the city manager conferences, and they have expanded from finances to court to accounting to all kinds of other things. So it's a natural progression. Through that lens, they had asked some of their smaller cities to pause in their conversion until they could get their internal technology support up to speed, and Rome and several other small cities fell in that category.
So then we are still STW.
Well, yes and no. I mean, they talk about it through that lens, but they are transitioning to OpenGov. Other questions?
I feel like it makes sense if we're going to talk about transparency and you want to change the budget, make it more user-friendly where you can see what's going on, what's in the accounts, what's being spent. I feel like if we need those consultants, then it's a good thing.
It should pay good dividends for the city. And it is the logical next step in your budget evolution. So I would just need council authority to engage them for those 2 days.
Well, I make a motion to approve the negotiations with them, not to exceed 5,000.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
And next item, number 8, confirmation of fire chief.
Yes, ma'am. You also have a commentary in your packet as it relates to the steps that were taken prior to my arriving here on the job. We had individuals who had applied for the position, and we apparently, staff and chief was running a lot of this when he was in the interim role, put together a panel to interview those people and narrowed it down to 2 finalists. When I took my position, he felt it was very important that I have some conversations with them, as they will become one of the members of the leadership team for the city. And so I talked with both finalists and came to a conclusion that Mr. Estes would be the best choice for our city based on a variety of factors, not to mention his work experience, his understanding of our current conditions in Rome, the relationships that he already has with a lot of our surrounding neighbors, the needs of the community, and ideas for the future that he has for this department. So he is here to meet you all. He is back in the corner if you have any questions, but I have brought him here to the meeting this evening so that we can ratify this hire and have him start with us on January the 30th. Scott, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name's Scott Estes, and I've been in the fire service as of January 25th this year, 40 years. Started off in West Texas, out in Abilene, worked 10 years there. Followed one of our battalion chiefs up to the Metroplex, worked for another 27, 28 years up in the Metroplex. Decided it was time to retire and find something else to do, so I went to work for VFIS, but still connected with the fire departments. And I traveled around doing insurance needs for volunteer and combination fire departments, so that opened my eye to a lot of the transitions and combinations in volunteer fire departments. And during that time, I was also fire chief over at Boyd at Wise County District 1. So I had to retire from that because I had to relocate to a different city down to South Texas. My area covered quite a large area. About 8 months, I decided that I still had a lot to learn in the fire service, and I had a lot to give to the fire service. And I've continued my education in the fire service, even though I was selling insurance and taking care of insurance needs. This job came up. I've been here. My kids grew up in Bridgeport. They lived there for 30 years. They went from first and 12th grade there in Bridgeport, graduated. And then we moved away, and I don't call Abilene home. I call Wise County home. And my wife and both wanted to get back here. The job came up. Perfect timing for me. I applied, and I'm grateful that I had the chance to become the fire chief. I want to continue what Daryl started. I don't want to change everything. I don't think it has to all be changed. It just needs to be improved upon as the city grows. I'd like the members of the department to grow and become the leaders someday and become the chief someday. I want them to start developing themselves so they take higher spots within the department themselves, so we don't have to go outside. So all of them will do it.
Thank you. Does council have any questions?
So I'm sure you've done your due diligence, and you know our little fire department runs a little differently than some others. We have part-time, we got a full-time, covers rolling V. So not only how do you see leading a part-time and a full-time department, as well as Chief Fitch was very instrumental in working with grants to keep the department running. So how do you see things going for your department, and do you have that grant experience? Or
Yes, while I was in Boyd, I went through several grants. Most of them are through the Forestry Service, Texas Forestry Service. Most of the grants come through there. Motorola's got a few grants. It's not too difficult to go through to get. A lot of paperwork, a lot of writing. Also, VFIS, the insurance company I was with, they have grants for the volunteers for the protection of them if they get injured or hurt, while they're out on the call. It'll also pay for their full-time job while they're out too. That's a good thing through VFIS and the grants that they give out every year. When they're off duty and they get hurt while they're working, they also get paid for their full-time job. So that makes it even better. It's a grant that's very easy to get. You just got to do it on time every year. And Daryl's been doing that. I just spent yesterday and yesterday half a day and today looking over stuff. Went over to the station, went over all the large areas that are being built right now. Went through, basically today I went around the whole county, our county line to see where everything is at. And especially the station and the equipment. There's a lot of work to do, a lot of cleanup to do around the station to try to get it up and going. It's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of time. I consider myself a working chief when I was at Boyd, and I consider myself a working chief here. You have to sit behind a desk, you have to do your paperwork, you have to do your due diligence, but you also have to get out there and work side by side with the goal and this team.
Just want to say we're glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here. I really am. I think it was a blessing that I got this job, and this is where I need to be.
Thank you all. If there's no more questions, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. Number 9, organizational analysis and prioritization of projects. And that's city administrator as well.
Mayor, if we could back up, I understand from
Uh-oh.
Mr. Atkins that we need a vote on the confirmation.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. I thought it was a done deal. All right.
I motion to approve the confirmation of the new fire chief.
I'll second that.
Who was the second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Organizational analysis and prioritization of projects.
Thank you, Mayor. So as part of the first 30 days on the job, officially today, by the way, so I have done some work in the background just looking at where we sit as a city and determining some ways that we might either improve some things or leverage the strengths we already have. So Shayna, I think the PowerPoint you may have here, if you don't mind helping me with that. That way everybody can see the same information. Go down. All right. And then go to slideshow. So, looking through the first 30 days, the things that I have done, I will tell you, as I had heard long before I came here, that you all have an amazing team of staff. I have talked with pretty much every one of them, probably not all the volunteers at the fire station and or the volunteers at the police department, but all of the paid staff are very, very committed to this community. They go above and beyond every day on behalf of the residents and the council, and you all should be very grateful for that, because it is difficult to put together such a cohesive staff in a small city in a more rural area. And so I had heard that talking with folks in the county and talking and listening to some of you all talk at your meetings, and I will tell you that that is true. I have had the pleasure of working for 4 different cities in a variety of roles, and this one is very, very well staffed. I have also settled in at City Hall and made a few changes there as it relates to some of the things that we had in the office. As you know, we have Laserfish on hand, so we have started scanning some of our historical documents to make sure that we keep those in perpetuity for the city to be accessed and reviewed if necessary. What we don't want to do is have something occur like what happened at the city of Aurora and lose our documents. So this way, Shayna has done the bulk of the work of scanning that. She's pretty quick at it, but we get it into the system and we make sure that it's hosted in the cloud so that we don't lose it. I have also met with staff to understand their roles. I recently went, I believe that was yesterday, Chief. We went out on a tour with the Public Works guys yesterday to look at the water and wastewater stations and all the wells, and that was definitely an education that I had not been through before. And I have talked with the police department and the fire department and the challenges that they have and then the strengths that they have. and met with developers to get up to speed on the existing projects. I've had a few reach out in the interim of this 30 days just to see, kick the tires, if you will, on what might be doable in the city. None of them have come to the level of P&Z or council at this point. Most of it's just looking through the lens of the good things that they hear are coming, the residents that they hear are coming, and as the rooftops start to get settled in, we will continue to have this over the next 2 to 5 years for the city. I've reviewed notes and emails, as I mentioned to you, from the previous city administrator's perspective, and I've gotten to know many of the community members and outside stakeholders, and frankly, I think coming in right before Christmas was the greatest joy because a lot of people came through City Hall, and I got to meet several individuals. It was really nice. As mentioned earlier on the financial piece, I have reviewed the budgets and started moving us into the next phase of our budget evolution, and we will talk about that going forward this year. I've read your comp plan, your visioning retreat notes, your water study master plan, and your wastewater study master plan. So you have a lot of amazing tools that a city of 1,800 usually does not have under their belt to help guide and help you move this city into the next several years. So really an amazing set of documents to pull from based on both residential input, professional input, and system analysis as to where we need to move forward for this city. So very well done. One of the things that I want to make sure that we talk with council as we continue to go forward, and I'm trying to keep this brief because we're staying very high level, is there are some things that we've already made some decisions on tonight that I think will help address the challenges and the concerns that residents have had as it relates to transparency and communications. And I think I have met with several individuals and talked through the lens of the top 3 priorities that we really need to focus on now are communications and engagement. These are not in any order. Budget development and financial forecasting so that you all can make informed decisions about how the city is going to move, as well as water security. And by that, I mean not only who can we buy it from, who can we partner with, and what can we provide ourselves. And not just water from the standpoint of drinking water, but wastewater processing, because we need to be able to offer those services not only to our existing residents, but we have to be able to offer those services to those in the ETJ as it makes sense, so that we can continue to be a healthy and thriving community. And so all of those things are going to have to be looked at through that lens over the next several months as we have discussions. You also see that development projects, both existing and future, are ones that are going to be important to us. The facilities that some of our departments are in are going to have to be addressed, as well as the infrastructure that I heard most every of the 5 council members who applied today talk about, and I've heard you all discuss in the past, as well as I had a chance to meet with our technology consultant, and we're going to need to look at how we forecast technology over the next several years to make sure that we are staying up to date and that we are secure in our network so that we are not subject to phishing or ransomware or something to that effect. And there are some things that we can do fairly easily that will help secure that, because smaller cities that don't have necessarily full-fledged departments, they are at risk for that type of ransomware to come to our doorstep, and we want to make sure that we avoid that. And then the comprehensive plan implementation. There were several recommendations out of that, and now that I've read the water studies, there are several recommendations out of that. And as part of your budget evolution, one of the things I'd like to talk with you all about as we move forward is putting together a capital improvement plan and forecasting that over several years, because we're not going to be able to fix it all at once, but we can certainly put a plan forward as to how we're going to do that and in what year that may occur, and we'll adjust it based on a variety of factors, budgetarily driven. I'd like to get our funds segregated into enterprise funds through the utility use, and then our general fund, which is our day-to-day business processes, if you will. And then if we want to, in the past, I know you have set aside money for a variety of things, but we can look at some major maintenance and repair funds as well to try and move some money into that for future needs. So all of those things are going to be important over the next 6 to 12 months as we continue to deal with the growth that is coming to Rome, as we make sure that we maintain our historical integrity, because you have some historical sites within the city that are simply amazing and cannot be repurchased anywhere else. And so we have to figure out how all of that weaves together to create the quilt that we want Rome to be as we continue to grow and evolve. So that's kind of a broad overview of the last 30 days, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and just it's basically teeing up things that will come to you at council meetings as this continues to become of necessity as we move through.
I just have one question on the scanning of the documents. Do we have a ETA of when everything's going to be digital?
We have a lot of documents. I actually was looking today through some old ordinances from the 40s and 50s, and Shane is quick, but it's going to probably take us 6 months to a year to get finished with that. Okay. I also had a chance to tour under the water tower, and I believe, Mrs. Wilson, you brought this up. There are several boxes of documents over there that need to be gone through. I've talked with municipal court. Christy is very keen to have the ones that are past their records retention cycle destroyed. However, we're going to have to contract with a company to destroy those, and I'm not sure that Wise County offers it. I know Tarrant County used to cities for free, and they would give you an official destruction document, but I don't know if that service is available to us here. So I need to find out what those options are. There are also some surplus items in that tower and at a variety of sites around the city that we need to get auctioned and get them out of here, because they're not of any use to us, and we might be able to monetize some of those and set them aside with some funds for improvements that council wants to make. So there are a lot of things that can be done. We just need to make sure that we've got an orderly plan through which to do it.
I love this. I love hearing the brief overview of what's going on and what we can expect to see. And so maybe if we could, I don't know, have a standing agenda item once a month for about 10 minutes. I know we have the monthly department documents on there, but just to hear somebody talk and put it out there in words, brief overview of what City Hall's doing, fire, police, public works. Yeah, just to put it out there. I think we could afford 10 minutes a month to that. Yeah.
Like I said, Rome has a lot of really amazing things going for it, and we have a lot of good things coming. We just need to get ourselves positioned through which we are ready and available and can help guide that development through what we're looking for. We can make a lot of those public-private partnerships that Mr. Loftus talked about. Those are going to be very important to us moving forward. And I will tell you, for those of you who don't know me very well, I am also a fiscal conservative. Tax money is tax money. It is not my money. It is not staff's money. It is to be used on behalf of the citizens, but it also has to be spent well. And council has to have the information that they need to make an informed decision on what is best for the city, because we do have infrastructure and we do have facilities that are going to have to be addressed. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. That's good. I've already kind of settled in over there. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We can move on to number 10, proposed Encore transmission line placement. This will be Mrs. Priest.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to also remind you that you have a map at your place that looks at those proposed sites, and just so that we are very clear, these are very, very preliminary.
All right. I don't know how many of you have heard the rumor or have read information, but Encore is working on its final route plans for an additional double circuit 345 kV transmission line. If you wonder what that is and what it looks like, come stand in my front yard and look to the north, and you will see an existing big honking poles, and that's also a double circuit 345 kV transmission line. The 10 years before I moved permanently to Rome, this is what I did, is the same thing that Encore is about to do at this time. So when Encore notified the city that we may have property that could be near or under multiple choices of routes that they were looking at from point A to point B. And point A happens to be a new facility, a substation, might be a description that you'd recognize over in the Flower Mound area. Point B is over close to Ramhorn Road, and it's on the PMB property. And so what Encore is trying to do is to get more electrical opportunities for the growing areas, and you can understand what the catalyst for all of that is. So when that letter came from Encore that the city could be affected, um, Mr. Gann had not yet been hired by a few days, and because this was a professional background for me, I volunteered to go to the public meeting that they held. And so I will just read this summary for you. I attended the Encore's public meeting the first part of December, which offered information to property owners who have property within 500 feet of multiple possible routes between the new substation in Flower Mound area and a new substation, also known as a switching station, near Ramhorn Road. The final easement will only be 100 feet wide. So if you think about that, they're notifying 1,000 feet of property owners, but ultimately the route that they actually buy and locate that will be 100 feet wide. So they're getting a broader input from people that may be in close proximity to the final route. The purpose of the meeting was to inform owners of the property owners of the project details and to gather their opinions relative to the possible routes. This process is standard for utility expansions. Encore is asking for specific details as to objections to any of these potential routes and also for route preferences. I gathered information and viewed and photographed large-scale maps. When I returned, I updated the city administrator and asked Public Works to look at the many possible routes to see if any city-owned property might be affected. We wanted to be certain that wells, wastewater plants, buildings, properties were in the clear. 2 properties were identified with this review. Number 1, undeveloped property north of the Bywell subdivision. This would be the area which has been designated as a potential park for the city. This is the same property that the bond that we asked for to develop that park failed. So just to help you picture where that is. The second piece of property, the ETJ east of Farm Road 3433 and south of 287, referred to as RVR or the Reunion area. There are several possible routes on this property. If the route is selected, the undeveloped property could be affected. The easement agreement will not allow any structures to be built within the easement. This restriction could limit the city's use of the future park area. However, it would not be prohibited from development of green space, which could be a point of negotiation with Encore. PMB has requested the most easterly route into the new substation near Ramhorn Road. That route would have the least impact on that piece of property. The other possible routes would have significant negative impact to commercial and or residential development, which would result in negative financial outcomes. Consequently, the loss of tax revenue would be perpetual over the years. First, the loss would be to PMB, but ultimately, when annexed into the city, the loss would continue to the city. Likewise, loss of sales tax. For the reduction of commercial sites, would be um, perpetual as well. Therefore, it is my opinion that the city respond to Encore's request for input. In other words, they want to know what we're thinking and how come we're thinking that way. So number one, Rome objects to route north of Highway 114, which is north of the Bywell subdivision. The easement would restrict the development of a future park. Number two, Rome objects to all the routes on the PMB Capital property, except the route which would enter the substation from the east. All other routes would have negative financial impact to PMB Capital and the city of Rome by the reduction of commercial and residential development. PMB Capital will be submitting detailed financial information to Encore regarding this objection. So, once again, I want to be clear. They're showing all these little gold lines on here are possible routes. And every time you get to an intersection, they can put a turn structure there and go off in another direction. And so this is the area where Ramhorn Road is, and right here is where that substation is going to be developed. So this is the entrance into that PMB is asking for. You can see all of these other possibles, and those possibilities would be called causing financial distress. So what Encore is asking is tell us where you don't want us to be and tell us where you want us to be. But give us facts. Don't just say, you can't just go and say, I don't want to look at it. That's not, they're not going to listen to that part. If you come in and you have evidence and you have numbers and you can demonstrate to them that if they choose a particular route, the negative impacts could be, whatever, it depends on where you are. But for us, those two properties are the ones that could cause some negative results for us. So I would like to propose that I turn this back over to the city administrator and that she respond to Encore and with these two objections, just to give them reason to consider our objection. Now, I will tell you from experience, once it goes to the state commission that will help Encore finalize their route, they may, there's going to be somebody that's unhappy. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that line is not going to happen. It is going to happen. And so all we can do is give them the best information we can, give them good reasons, give them good explanation. And I can tell you that we have already visited with PMB about this particular situation, and they are working diligently to give the information to Encore and to the commission that will make the final route, and explain to them why our choice is to come in from the east on that property. Does anybody have any questions that I can help you with?
Is there a timeline?
Yes, there is a timeline, and we need to respond pretty quickly.
Has staff had a chance to review all this and agree with everything? I know this is what you're meaning when you got to do your homework before you come up here, right?
Well, I attended a meeting, conference calls, and
no, I think you definitely did your homework on this, and this is definitely a huge impact to the city, both monetary and just property wise. So I'm fine with going back with these 1 and 2, saying no, not here.
I will say without Elaine's assistance, we would be much further behind the 8 ball on this, and she's done an excellent job of representing the information to me and getting information funneled to me so that we could bring this to you all this evening. But it will be very important that we respond.
So do you need a motion or anything for this, or is this just direction?
Just direction.
Okay.
I don't see anything under executive session.
I'm not sure that that's the case, council. Are we in executive session or not?
I think that we need to go have a discussion as to the questions of our attorney.
Okay.
Okay. Is that something, executive session, is that not something that we can be apprised of ahead of time? Because this is always listed on every agenda, whether we have executive session or not. Fine. Executive session, section 551.071, consultation with attorney, pending or contemplated litigation, settlement offer, or to seek advice from attorney. And it is 8:28. We'll go to executive session.